Vacationing with kids is hard work. Before the launch date of my family's trip around the South, I spent weeks cramming fun, educational travel activities into a duffel. Some of these, like Mad Libs, worked. Some didn't, including the game Meaningful Dialogue. Following is a real excerpt of my conversation with Max, my 5-year-old. Me, Max, what's the wisest thing anybody ever said to you? Max, the letter 3. Maybe Max was making a symbolic reference to the Holy Trinity, but considering he wears his underwear backward, I doubt it. Another game was for the kids to write a family motto, something uplifting with gravitas, like the motto of the British monarchs, God and my right. Following our actual slogans, my children devised as we passed Indianapolis. Can I has a cell phone? My mom has smelly armpits. Booger, booger, booger. When I was little, I could be alone in a crowded car. I'd stare out the window, dream of Tarzan, and be happy. But silence doesn't compute for my children. Born less than 4 years apart, none knows what it means to be alone. On the drive down, I endured the 4 voices chattering constantly and simultaneously until the Kentucky state line. And then I cleared my throat. Everybody, I'm not mad, but it's important to be your own best friend. Sometimes it's nice just to be quiet and think. In the rearview mirror, 4 puzzled blonde heads stared at me. I tried again. For the next 5 minutes, we're not going to say anything. Get it? The heads nodded. Great, I said. Ready, go. Madeline's hand shot up. Madeline, you're not even supposed to ask questions, I said. Joshua tapped my shoulder. Un, deux, trois, he proclaimed, knowing he couldn't get in trouble for practicing his French. Good job, I said. Okay, everybody, look out the windows at the pretty trees, make up an imaginary world, but don't talk. Again, the 4 heads nodded, and silence. 10 seconds passed. 20, 30, triumph. And then, did I win the game? Max asked. I know I didn't. Max was responsible for many dramatic moments on the trip. Consider when he told Daddy, who was driving, I gotta go potty. Just 5 more minutes, Daddy said. Back and forth went this exchange until Max said in a sweet, high voice, too late. My oldest son, Jake, became part of the scenery really in North Carolina's Biltmore estate the next day. We were inside for 5 minutes when Max lost a junior ranger badge and I tromped outside to find it. My cell phone rang and it was Daddy. All I could understand was, Jake is stuck. Stuck? We weren't crawling through tight cave passages. Rushing inside, I heard a child sobbing and saw a crowd gathering around a pillar in the winter garden. It's the skylit pavilion behind the grand foyer. I pushed through crowds of tourists photographing not Renoirs, but a worker dumping green liquid soap on Jake's forearm. Somehow he'd wedged it between limestone carvings. Everybody had advice for Jake. Wiggle this way, that way. An Asian family couldn't speak English, but they very sweetly gave Jake bottled water to sustain him during his travails. A worker called a supervisor on a walkie-talkie, and she arrived to give Jake her expert advice about the column's construction and how he should dislodge his arm. A third worker gave Jake a $5 gift card to cheer him up. 30 minutes later, the crowd shouted triumphantly as Jake pried his arm from the column. A pool of goop surrounded our shoes. Jake reeked of soap, and he would until he showered that night. Later, I was an enthusiastic wine taster at Biltmore's vineyard. But I know our journey made a lasting impact on the blossoming minds of our children. I asked Max to name the most important lesson he learned. He fixed his cornflower blue eyes on me, pursed his Cupid's bow lips, and stated, "Big Butt Mountain and Little Butt Mountain are both in North Carolina." At least he learned something.